All right, so for this registration form, before we create the registration form, we're going to need a user model in our system because we're creating users with registration. So we're going to need a database and a table and a model. Let's create it. So artisan make model user, but actually user is created by default in Laravel. So we already have a user model here and it has our boilerplate, so we're good there. Okay, and it also has a migration by default. So database, migrations, create users table, it's right there. It has an email and a password field. And that's plenty for us. We're just gonna stick with the Laravel defaults. But if we run this, we're probably gonna get an error. So let's say artisan migrate, okay? And it says, hey, what's wrong? Unknown database Laravel. Because we haven't set up a database. So let's go inside our env file and see what it's looking at. So it's looking for MySQL, it's looking for a local connection with a database called Laravel. Well, I don't have any of that set up. So this is what I do, at least when I'm starting an application. I just use SQLite. So if you set database connection to SQLite, and then I use touch, which just creates a new file. So touch database/database.sqlite. That's actually the convention for Laravel SQLite connection. So all I've done is done those two things. And if you look inside the database folder, so if we go to database.sqlite, it's right there. Okay. Now I can do artisan migrate, and it worked. And we can open up that table with the open command. So open database/database.sqlite. And now this is going to open table plus and show us our new users table that's completely empty. I think that's a pretty nice workflow for at least getting started. I don't have to deal with a separate database connection with MariaDB or SQL Pro or anything like that. It's so simple. Okay, so that's our user table, that's our user model. We are good to go there. Now let's add some life to this form. Let's actually create the boilerplate of the form and then kind of bring it to life. So we're going to open our register class on the left, and then we're going to open our register blade view on the right. Okay. Now this blade view right now is just a div that says hello registration. Let's add our boilerplate. So rather than copy and pasting it all in for you, it would be faster, but I really want to make you suffer. You know, I want to make you watch me do everything step by step, every single keystroke. It's just, you know, some sick pleasure I get out of this. So let's create 3 fields in this form. We're going to want an email, we're going to want a password, and we're going to want a password confirmation. Okay. We will select these 3 and let's copy them to the clipboard, and we can actually delete them because we have them in the clipboard now. So we're going to create divs, and inside those divs, we're going to create input elements with type text. We're going to give them an ID of what we just specified. We're going to give them a name of what we just specified. And I think that's probably good for now. We also want to add labels. So let's add a label with what we copied in the clipboard. And then 4 is going to reference that ID there. And I think that's probably good enough for our purposes right now. We have email, password, password confirmation. These are both type text and they need to be type password. All right, last step is a submit button. So input, type, submit. And then our value is going to be register. Okay. So this should be good for our boilerplate. We have email, password, password confirmation, all in a form tag, all with input elements. We're doing pretty well. Okay. So like you saw in the data binding video, in Livewire, you use data binding when you need to deal with input. So let's kind of work our way backwards. We're going to start at the component and then we're going to go backwards to fill in the gaps in the UI. So let's create a new method called register. And then inside of this method, we're going to do the user registration. So we're going to create a user, and that user is going to have an email and it's going to have a password. Okay. Password is going to use #make. This is stuff that Laravel usually gives you out of the box, but we're not out of the box types of people, you know? We are pain and suffering types of people. So email is going to come from, where does email come from and where does password come from? We're going to put it as data on the component. We're going to bind it to the input elements. So here we go. Public email. That's going to start out as an empty string. And then this is going to be password. and then this is going to be password confirmation. Okay, those are our three properties. We're going to bind those with wire model, and then we can use them in here when we're ready to actually do the registration. We'll say email and then hash make this password. Okay, we're not going to worry about validation or anything like that right now. We just want to get a user created. All right, so this should be pretty good right now on the back end on the live wire component side, but in the view, we need to wire it all up. We need to make this data synchronize with these values, and then we need a way to actually call the register method. So let's deal with the data synchronization right now. We're going to add those wire models. So here we go. Wire model, email, password, and password confirmation. Quick note, I prefer to have wire model if you're using Alpine like X attributes, or if you're using Vue like V- attributes, I prefer to have those all first before all the other attributes. It's just my own little stylistic thing. Otherwise, they get tacked on to the end, and when you're scanning a template, you don't know all the magic stuff that's attached to the template. So it's my personal preference, and you'll see me do that a lot. Wire model email, password, and confirmation, and just for posterity's sake, let's echo out the email and look at it live update in the browser. If I type hey, there we go, we have hey. So the data binding is completely working, it's all wired up. The last step is to actually call this register method. So you could do this. We could say wire click register, right? And that would be fine. But if you are only listening for the click on the button to call registration, and you're in the middle of a form and you hit enter in an input field, it's not going to submit the form because it's listening for a click. So when I'm dealing with any type of form, I prefer to have normal submit buttons, just like a normal form, but instead of an action, I'll do wire submit, listen for submit, and register. Now there's one more thing we have to do to make this work, but I'll kind of demonstrate it for you. So right now we're la-di-da, we're adding our email, and we hit enter to submit it. Now ideally we call that register method. Okay, so a bunch of things happen there. Let's take a look at our database and see if we see anything. All right, so we did create a new user, and that all worked, but everything cleared out, which is a little curious. So what happened was we actually did call this submit register. So Livewire picked that up and sent a request to call register, but we also submitted the entire form. So that's why you see all that extra data in the query string right here. So to prevent that, oh, funny. Did I set that up perfect or what? Submit.prevent. There we go. If you've used Vue.js, it's the same exact thing. If you did v on submit, you would do .prevent in Vue.js. So that stands for prevent default. It's going to prevent the default behavior of the submit event, which is to submit the form. We're going to prevent that default behavior, and we're going to do our own form submission. So this is really good. I think this is a good little milestone, road mark, skid mark. I hope you liked my jokes. All right, we type in here, we hit register, and it's still submitting the whole form. What's up with that? I added .prevent. Did I not save the file and refresh? Let's try this one more time. Register, go there, okay. Specify some email, click register, there we go. Now it does not refresh, and now I've added another user into the database. So I think this is a good stopping point. We will see you in the next video.